Tuesday nights used to be our thing. The quiet ones. The kind where we didn't owe anyone our time, no obligations, just me and her, just us. That's how it used to be, before everything turned to ash. That particular Tuesday started off like any other. Emily, my wife of 6 years, left around 7 in the evening. She said she was grabbing a drink with some folks from her new marketing job. She'd been talking about that team nonstop lately, name-dropping coworkers I'd never met like they were family. I stayed back, alone in the kitchen, scrolling through my phone like I was searching for something but didn't know what. A cold beer sweating on the counter, even though I didn't really feel like drinking. The silence around me started to feel heavy. I hadn't realized how much noise she brought into the house until that night. Her laughter, her voice, even the way she always filled the space with music or dumb stories from work. Without that, it felt dead. Somewhere around midnight, I heard her car pulling into the driveway. The headlights swept across the living room like a searchlight, and for some reason, my stomach twisted. Not because she was late, we both had our nights, but something just felt off. Like my gut already knew what my heart didn't want to believe. She came through the front door louder than usual. The jingle of her keys, the way the door slammed, like she was rushing or didn't care who she woke up. And then I heard the click of her heels. She hadn't worn heels like that for me in years. When she walked in, the perfume hit me first. Some sickly sweet stuff that didn't belong to the woman I'd fallen in love with. It was heavy, too much, like she was trying too hard to smell like something else. At first, she didn't even notice me sitting there. She was too busy whispering into her phone, giggling like some teenager sneaking back in after curfew. That laugh, it wasn't for me anymore. When she finally looked up and saw me, her whole face dropped. Like she'd seen a ghost instead of her husband. "Daniel," she blinked hard, like she was waking from a dream. "What are you still doing up?" I didn't answer right away. I just stared. There were too many words stuck in my throat. Questions, anger, confusion, nothing came out. She tossed her purse onto the kitchen island and started kicking off her shoes like nothing was wrong. That's when I realized she was acting like she had the upper hand. Like she already knew I wouldn't say a damn thing. But I stood up. Quietly. I didn't yell, didn't demand answers. I just walked past her, straight to our bedroom. There was a drawer in her closet she always kept off limits. Said it was just old stuff. Junk. She used to joke about it like it was nothing. But I knew better. You get this itch after living with someone for that long, and that night. I scratched it. As soon as my hand touched the drawer, I heard her footsteps coming fast down the hallway. "Daniel, don't." Her voice cracked. Not like she was afraid for me, like she was terrified I'd see something. I opened it anyway. No hesitation. Inside was a small locked box. One of those cheap ones you use for spare keys or travel jewelry. Pink nail polish painted on top, her initials. I didn't even pause. I grabbed the heel of my boot and snapped the flimsy lock open in one swing. What was inside wasn't junk. Not even close. Letters. Photos. Ticket stubs. Receipts. Trinkets. A whole world she built that I wasn't part of. I stared down at the mess of memories that didn't include me. And then I saw it, a folded note, tucked neatly at the bottom like she wanted to hide it but couldn't quite let it go. I opened it with shaking hands. It was from someone named Ryan. "There's a place I've never let him near," it said. "But somehow, you're different." I dropped the paper like it burned. My heart was racing, my ears ringing. I turned around and saw her standing in the doorway. Arms crossed. Not crying. Not ashamed. She just stood there, daring me to make something of it. "Give it to me," she said sharply. "What's in all of this?" I asked, though the words barely sounded like mine. She didn't respond. Just kept staring like I was the one who owed her answers. And for the first time since the night we met, I didn't ask for permission. I looked her right in the eyes and didn't blink. That was when I finally understood, she wasn't sorry. Not even a little. She wasn't scared of losing me. She was scared of losing control. She leaned against the doorframe like she couldn't be bothered. Arms crossed, face unreadable, like she was watching a kid throw a tantrum. That's how she saw me in that moment. Not as her husband, not as someone she'd made vows to, but as an inconvenience. "I asked you a question," I said again, quieter this time. My voice didn't even sound like my own. What is all this? She scoffed. Actually scoffed. Rolled her eyes like I was making a big deal out of nothing. You're being dramatic, Daniel. It's not like I killed someone. Then she had the audacity to try walking past me, like this wasn't even worth a conversation. Like I wasn't standing there holding a box full of the life she was living behind my back. Without thinking, I reached out and grabbed her wrist. Not hard, just enough to stop her. Who is Ryan? I asked. That's when her expression cracked. Just for a second. Her body went rigid. Her jaw clenched. That name meant something, and she knew it had weight. But she recovered quickly. The mask snapped right back into place. Why do you care? She spat. You've been emotionally gone for months. Checked out. You don't get to be jealous now. That hit me like a slap. Checked out? I wanted to laugh, but nothing about this was funny. I thought about all the nights I waited up for her. The mornings I brought her coffee just to see her smile. The stupid little surprises. All the effort I put in while she was out living a second life. And she had the nerve to call me distant. I let go of her wrist. She yanked it back like I'd burned her, rubbing the skin with a dramatic flare like I'd hurt her. As if she was the victim. Then she stormed into the living room, grabbed her phone from the counter, and turned back to me like she was done. I don't have to explain myself to you, she snapped. Maybe if you'd been more of a man, I wouldn't have needed to find someone who actually makes me feel alive. That one landed deep. I felt my knees weaken like I'd taken a hit. But I followed her, not to argue, not to beg, just to understand how someone I loved could turn into this stranger. How long? I asked, barely above a whisper. She smiled then. But it wasn't kind. It was smug. Triumphant. Long enough, she said. Long enough to know Ryan is everything you're not. I actually stumbled back. Physically. Like my body needed space from the words. She grabbed her purse and started digging through it for her car keys, like the conversation was already over. Like our marriage was just another event she was leaving early. I'm going to Ryan's, she said over her shoulder. You can keep pretending we're something worth saving. She slammed the door on her way out. The sound echoed through the house like a gunshot. I stood there, clutching that box like it was radioactive. And that's when it hit me, this wasn't something that happened tonight. I didn't lose her tonight. I lost her a long time ago. I just didn't see it. I didn't sleep. I just sat there in the quiet, surrounded by the ghost of our life together. Her perfume still clinging to the air. Her laughter still etched into the walls. Around 4 a.m, I picked up that box again. This time, I went through it slowly. I read the notes. Looked at the photos. Studied the receipts. Some dated back to months. She told me she was traveling for work. Concert tickets to shows we never went to. A bracelet with a tacky little heart charm, our +E scratched into the back. They looked like tokens from some teenage summer fling. Only this one was funded by the man she left behind. And buried deep between 2 receipts was the final blow. A lease agreement. For an apartment across town. Rented under her maiden name. I read it twice. 3 times. The address. The date. Her signature. She wasn't just cheating. She was planning. Building an entire second life while I was still making her dinner and folding her laundry. I don't even remember making the decision. My body just moved. I threw on a jacket, grabbed my keys, and drove. I didn't care what time it was. I needed to see it for myself. The apartment wasn't far, maybe 15 minutes. One of those new complexes with glass balconies and fake palm trees in the lobby. I pulled into the lot, and there it was, her car. Parked like it belonged. My chest felt like it was caving in. I sat in the car for what felt like hours, hands trembling on the wheel. My mind spinning. But eventually I got out. Climbed the stairs to unit 203. Knocked once. Then again harder. Just when I started to think maybe I had the wrong place, the door cracked open. And there she was. Standing in the doorway in one of his hoodies, barefoot, makeup smudged. She looked comfortable. At home. Like she'd lived there forever. When she saw me, she didn't look scared. She didn't even look sorry. "What the hell are you doing here, Daniel?" she hissed, glancing over her shoulder. And then I heard it. A man's voice. Sleepy. Casual. Babe? Who is it? That's when it stopped being real. Everything inside me twisted. My stomach dropped. She stepped outside and closed the door behind her. Her voice low. Cold. I told you it's over, she said. I haven't loved you in a long time. You need to stop embarrassing yourself. Then the door behind her opened a little wider. And I saw him, Ryan. Barefoot. Rubbing his eyes. Wearing the same lazy smirk I'd imagined 100 times. And right then, with her standing between us like a barrier she built on purpose, she leaned in close and whispered, "You were too easy, Daniel. Too boring. Ryan knows how to handle me." Then she turned and walked back inside. The door slammed shut, and this time, it wasn't just a door closing, it was everything. I didn't move. Not right away. I stood in that hallway under flickering fluorescent lights, surrounded by peeling paint and the faint stench of cigarette smoke, like I'd just been dropped into some twisted version of my life. The place smelled cheap. But all I could smell was her perfume still lingering in the air, clinging to my clothes like a ghost that refused to leave. Eventually, my body moved on its own. I went back down the stairs, got in my car, and just sat there. Hands clenched on the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. I wasn't sure if I was going to throw up, scream, or drive straight into a wall. I didn't do any of those things. I just sat there. Alone. Watching the lights in their apartment flicker behind the blinds, waiting for her to come out and run after me. To say something. Anything. But she never did. My phone buzzed around 5 a.m. I didn't want to look, but some part of me hoped it was different. Maybe a regret. A sorry. Some shred of the woman I married. All it said was, "Don't do anything stupid. Move on." I already have. No emotion. No hesitation. Just a command. Like I was a problem she wanted off her back. Like I was the one ruining her fantasy life. I laughed. Out loud. This awful, cracked-up sound that didn't even feel human. I was the trash on the curb, and she had the nerve to tell me to move on like she'd done nothing wrong. I drove home in silence. The streets were dead. No cars, no pedestrians. Just me and the cold air bleeding through the cracks in my windows. When I walked back into the house, our house, it felt like a museum of lies. Her coffee mug was still sitting on the counter from that morning. Her jacket was draped over the chair. Her shoes were by the front door like she'd be back any second. But she wasn't. I knew that now. And what really gutted me was realizing she left those things behind on purpose. Not because she forgot. But because she knew I'd see them. Step over them. Smell her everywhere. Like she wanted me to hurt. I wandered the house like a ghost. Touched things without really knowing why. Her side of the bed. The picture frames. The throw blanket she always stole when we watched TV. I kept asking myself the same question over and over. Was any of it real? Eventually, I ended up in the bedroom. I don't know why I opened her nightstand drawer. Maybe I was chasing closure, or maybe I just wanted to prove to myself there was nothing left to find. But inside was a photo. It was us. 2 years ago. At a Christmas party. She was holding onto my arm like I was the only man on earth. Her smile was wide, eyes bright. On the back, in her handwriting, it said, "Always you. Forever us." The photo slipped from my fingers and hit the floor. I stood there for a long time just staring at it. Not crying. Not angry. Just empty. And the cruelest part? I believed those words. Back then, I believed she meant them. That night, I didn't sleep. I just laid in bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling the house close in around me. The silence wasn't comforting, it was violent. Every creak in the floorboards, every groan from the walls sounded like echoes of memories I didn't want anymore. By sunrise, I knew what I had to do. I wasn't going to let her haunt this place. If she wanted a new life, she could have it. But she wasn't going to live rent-free in mine anymore. I got up, grabbed a roll of black garbage bags, and started clearing her out. I moved like a machine. No hesitation. No mercy. Her hoodie, the one she used to steal from my drawer when she was cold, into the bag. The jewelry scattered across the dresser. Her favorite lipstick. Half-empty makeup bottles in the bathroom. Gone. Even the sticky notes on the fridge, the ones that used to say "pick up milk, love you," ripped off and thrown out like the lies they'd become. I didn't stop there. I went into the closet. Grabbed every coat, every pair of heels she hadn't worn in months, every overpriced dress she claimed she had to have. I didn't even look at them twice. They weren't hers anymore. They were clutter. By the time I was done, there was a mountain of garbage bags stacked in the driveway. The sun was barely up, and already the neighbors were peeking out of their windows, pretending to check the mail, pretending not to stare. I didn't care. I sent her one last text. "Your stuff's in the driveway. Pick it up before it rains. Or don't. Doesn't matter to me." And then I blocked her number. I sat on the front steps, watching the light crawl across the rooftops, feeling something strange, something like peace and heartbreak colliding in my chest. Like something had been pulled out of me by force, and now there was nothing left but space. A few hours later, her car showed up. She stepped out like she was picking up groceries. Didn't look at the house. Didn't knock. She just started tossing the bags into her trunk one by one. At one point, she pulled out the Christmas photo, the same one I'd found, and actually laughed before dropping it face down on the concrete. And when she was done, when everything was packed and ready to go, she turned to the house, flipped me off, and drove away. No goodbye. No last word. Just a middle finger and a smile like she'd won. But here's the thing. She didn't just end our marriage. She poisoned it. Turned every good memory into something ugly. And in that moment, watching her taillights disappear down the road, I realized something brutal. The real betrayal wasn't that she loved someone else. It was that she stopped even pretending to respect me. That should have been the end of it. Watching her drive off, watching all the years we shared vanish into a cloud of exhaust, that should have been the final chapter. But life has a way of throwing in one last twist, just when you think you've already hit the bottom. It happened later that day, just past noon. I was still in the living room, half-dressed, blinds drawn, the TV playing something I wasn't even watching. I hadn't moved much since the morning, didn't have the energy. Nobody sane was coming by to visit the guy whose wife had just torched his life. So when the knock came at the door, it felt like a mistake. I almost didn't answer. But then it came again, sharper this time. Reluctantly, I pulled myself up and opened the door. Standing there, looking like she'd rather be anywhere else, was Olivia. My wife's so-called best friend. The one she was always getting drinks with. The one who, apparently, had been playing cover without realizing she was helping my wife run an affair. She looked pale, like she hadn't slept. Her eyes flicked over my shoulder as if Brooke might pop out and slap her for talking to me. "Hey Daniel," she said softly, nervously. "Can I talk to you for a minute?" I didn't say a word. Just stepped aside and let her in. She walked into the living room like it was booby-trapped. Paced for a second, biting her lip, wringing her hands, glancing at everything but me. I stayed silent. I didn't want to make it easier for her. I didn't owe comfort to anyone anymore. Then she blurted it out. "I didn't know about Ryan," she said quickly. "Not really. She told me you two were pretty much done. She said you were seeing someone else." That part didn't even sting. I'd already gotten used to the lies. At that point, hearing one more felt like reading the fine print on a scam ad. I let out a short laugh. Cold. Sharp. She winced, but kept talking. "I'm not here to defend her," she added, almost stumbling over her own words. I thought you deserved to know something." That got my attention. I finally looked her in the eyes. "Know what?" She swallowed, looked down, then met my gaze again. "Ryan's not who she thinks he is," Olivia said quietly. "He's got a reputation. This isn't his first time doing this. He goes after women in relationships. Married women. It's like a pattern with him." I stared at her. "She's not special to him, Daniel," she continued, her voice almost trembling. "She never was." And just like that, something shifted inside me. It wasn't relief. It wasn't satisfaction. It was worse than all of that. Because even her betrayal wasn't hers. She wasn't the exception. She wasn't the love of his life. She was just another name on his list. Another notch. Everything she threw away, every piece of our life, was for a man who probably didn't even know her middle name. Olivia kept talking, said something about Brooke bragging to their friends. How they all suspected, but no one wanted to say anything. How everyone knew before I did. But I barely heard the rest. My ears were ringing. The noise in my head was too loud. Eventually, Olivia realized I wasn't really there anymore. She apologized again, then quietly let herself out. I didn't follow. Didn't say goodbye. I just stood there, forehead pressed against the door, breathing like I'd run a marathon. It wasn't just the cheating. It wasn't even the lies. It was that she sold our entire life for nothing. For the illusion of something that never existed. And she was too stubborn, too selfish, too far gone to even see it. The days after that blurred into something I couldn't really name. I moved through the house like a shell, going through the motions. Trash out, dishes in, paperwork, calls. Not because I cared. Just because I had to. Every drawer I opened, every room I walked into, there she was. Her scent. Her hair ties. Her fingerprints on the mirrors. It was like she was still here. But only in the worst ways. So I tried to erase her. Donated her clothes. Cleared out every photo. Ripped the frames off the hallway walls like they were infected. But it didn't help. The house just got quieter. And that quiet, it wasn't peaceful. It was suffocating. Until one day, a few mornings later, I was taking the trash out, and old man Harvey from across the street called me over. He's one of those guys who always pretends he's not watching, even though you know he's seen everything. Always got some harmless gossip tucked behind his Sunday paper. That morning, though, he looked uneasy. He spoke in that heavy, serious voice old guys use when they're about to drop something they shouldn't. "Son," he said, not looking me in the eye. "I figured you should know. I saw that guy, Ryan. He was at your house." I blinked. "What?" He nodded, glancing around like someone might overhear. "Back when you were at work. A few times. I thought maybe you knew." She always came out laughing. Like she was proud of something. And just like that, the air around me got thicker. Harder to breathe. She hadn't just cheated. She hadn't just lied. She brought him here. Into our home. Into our bedroom. Into the space where we made plans, fought through hard years, celebrated small wins. She didn't even try to hide it. She desecrated it. And she did it while I was at work, still thinking we had something worth fighting for. I don't remember walking back across the street. Don't remember closing the door behind me. I just remember the way my fists clenched, the pressure in my jaw, my whole body locked up with something I hadn't felt this entire time. Rage. Real, raw, unforgiving rage. The kind that only comes when a man who gave everything finally realizes he was played for a fool. That rage sat in my chest like a weight, pressing down harder with every breath I took. For weeks, maybe longer, I'd been walking around like a kicked dog, hurt, confused, waiting for someone to throw me a bone. But that was gone now. What was left was something colder. Clearer. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't even going to try to make sense of her choices anymore. But I damn sure wasn't going to let her keep walking around thinking she won. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I went to her. I didn't plan it. Didn't sit down and write a script. I just knew I needed her to look me in the eye. To see what she'd done. Not through a text. Not from across a courtroom. But face to face. And I knew where she'd be. Olivia, without meaning to, had let it slip one night over drinks. Brooke had started hanging around some tacky rooftop bar downtown. One of those spots where middle-aged people tried to convince themselves they were still 22. A place she once swore was pathetic. Funny how fast people forget their standards when attention's involved. I grabbed a jacket, climbed into my truck, and drove. Every red light felt like it was dragging me closer to something I didn't want to face, but I didn't stop. The bar was packed. Loud music. Laughter that didn't reach anyone's eyes. The whole place reeked of fake charm and overcompensation. But I wasn't there to drink. I pushed through the crowd, scanning faces, and there she was. Brooke. Perched on a bar stool, legs crossed, drink in hand, laughing too loud at something Ryan was saying. She was leaning into him like he was gravity. I didn't hesitate. I walked straight toward them. She saw me first. Her smile faltered, just for a second, before she collected herself and flicked her hair like she was swatting away a fly. "Daniel," she said, cool as ice. "What are you doing here?" Ryan turned slowly, that same smug smirk glued to his face. Like he knew this moment was coming and was already bored of it. I didn't look at him. Not at first. I only looked at her. "You think you get to burn everything down," I said, low but steady, "and just ride off into the sunset smiling?" Her expression twisted. Annoyed. Dismissive. "God, Daniel. Move on. It's embarrassing." I nodded. "Just once." Took a slow breath. "You brought him into our house." That made her freeze. Just for a beat. "You dragged him through our life like it meant nothing. You let him into the space we built, our home, our bed, and you act like I should just clap for you." Brooke set her glass down hard enough to clink. She leaned in, eyes sharp, voice rising. "You were boring, Daniel. You stopped trying. You let everything get stale. I had to do something for me." And there it was. The lie she told herself so many times, it had become gospel. I laughed. This short, sharp sound that shut down the table next to us. "For you," I said. "You threw away 6 years for him?" Then I turned and looked Ryan dead in the eye. "How long until she's just another name to you?" He didn't answer. Just leaned back, grinning lazily, one arm resting behind Brooke like he was marking territory. "You're welcome, by the way," I added. "For cleaning up all her messes before you got here. For teaching her how to lie so well." He didn't flinch. He just chuckled. Like none of it mattered. Like none of us mattered. "You done?" he said finally, voice smug, bored. I looked at him, then back at her. And I smiled. A real one this time. "Yeah," I said. "I'm done." I didn't swing. Didn't shout. I didn't need to. Brooke sat there, still pretending to be unbothered, but I saw it, that flicker. That little flash of something behind her eyes. Doubt. Because for the first time since this nightmare started, I wasn't chasing her. I wasn't begging. I wasn't broken. I was walking away. And that scared her more than anything. I left them sitting there under cheap lights and cheaper laughs. Didn't look back. Not once. Getting back into my truck felt like shedding skin. Like I was stepping out of a fire I didn't even realize I'd been standing in for years. I didn't feel powerful. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt free. Worn out, sure. Hollow, definitely. But free. The next week moved fast, faster than I expected. I filed for divorce without ceremony. No more talks, no drawn-out back and forth. No second chances. The decision was clear, and I wasn't about to let her drag it out for drama. I shut everything down. Cancelled joint accounts. Closed credit cards. Changed the locks. Everything she had her name on, I either erased or rewrote. And you know what? She didn't even fight it. The papers were served to her new apartment, our apartment really, just renamed and repainted. All I got back from her was a thumbs-up emoji. That's it. 6 years together, burned to ash, and all she could send was a cartoon thumb. It would have been funny if it wasn't so goddamn pathetic. But karma, man, karma has a way of circling back when you least expect it. 3 days after I filed, Olivia called. I almost didn't pick up, but something told me to answer. Her voice was rushed, almost frantic. "Daniel, you need to see this." She sent me a screenshot. Brooke and Ryan had gone social. A big smiling selfie. Her front and center, clinging onto him like he was her prize. Ryan looked glassy-eyed and distracted, like he didn't even know the picture was being taken. But it wasn't the photo that mattered. It was the comments. At first, it was the usual fluff, cutest couple ever. Love you guys. The fake friends piling on. But then the cracks started showing. One woman tagged another, "Isn't this the guy who was with Morgan last month?" Another one chimed in, "Wait, thought he was engaged?" Then it snowballed. "Pretty sure that's the guy who got kicked out of Park Lounge for hitting on the bartender." Careful, girl. He's a walking disaster. Within the hour, his profile was locked down. Posts deleted. Comments disabled. Brooke didn't say anything. But the silence was telling. Her online kingdom, the little fantasy world she built out of our ruins, was cracking in real time, and there wasn't a damn thing she could do to stop it. I didn't reach out. Didn't say a word. Didn't gloat. I just sat there watching the wreck unfold from a distance, like I was finally in the audience instead of being center stage in a nightmare. And the weirdest part? I didn't even feel smug. I felt light. That weight I'd been dragging around for months, maybe years, it finally started to lift. For the first time in so long, I could breathe without tasting bitterness. It wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about winning. It was about being done. Really, truly done. She built her house of lies. And now it was collapsing. And I wasn't the one buried under the rubble anymore. So I started fresh. Repainted the house. New furniture. Different energy. I got rid of every little thing that smelled like her, felt like her, reminded me of that slow-motion heartbreak I used to call home. I went out more. Talked to people who smiled without needing an audience. Laughed without looking over their shoulder. For the first time in years, I wasn't walking on eggshells, waiting for the next cold shoulder, the next lie, the next drop of disappointment. There was no other shoe. Just peace. And if you've ever been through something like this, if you're sitting there wondering what you did wrong, what you missed, how you let it happen, hear me when I say this. You didn't lose them. They lost you. Their lies, their betrayal, their cowardice, that's not your burden to carry. That's theirs. Let them keep it. Because one day you'll wake up, and it won't hurt anymore. You'll look around and see the life you're building without them, and it'll be quiet and simple and honest. And you'll realize they were never worth the pain. Never worth the confusion. Never worth the sleepless nights. You'll remember what it feels like to breathe easy. And when you do, you won't miss them. You'll wonder why you ever thought they were worth bleeding for.